Now it's a very big welcome to our special guest today. Ariya Baumann was a Buddhist nun for 21 years. She is now a meditation teacher who gives retreats worldwide. She ordained in Burma. She learnt Burmese and translated for many of the Burmese teachers. For many years, she guided foreign meditators at a meditation centre there. She now lives in Switzerland. And she's due to give a retreat in Perth, Western Australia next month. Through her group, Metta in Action, Ariya helps those in need in Burma, including nuns on a regular basis. And there was such generosity towards this cause in our recent fundraiser, so we look forward to hearing more about her work. Ariya, welcome. Welcome to Sakyadhita Australia.
Thank you for the welcome. I'm very happy to be with you today.
Ariya, let's go back. I'm interested to hear about your Dhamma journey. You were born in Switzerland, I understand. So how did you discover the teachings and meditation?
Yes, I was born in Switzerland, grew up in Switzerland. My parents were Christians, my father Protestant, my mother Catholic, but they were not really religious. They didn't go to church, although they sent us children, I have two brothers, to Sunday school. And at that time at school, we had some religious lessons. And so I was doing that. But then when I was in my teens, maybe 13, 14 years old, I asked myself, who is this God? And if it's this kind, loving God, why is there so much suffering in the world? Why are the children starving in Africa? If he were loving and kind, he wouldn't allow these things to happen. And also, I reflected that if there is, whether you call it God or absolute love or higher something, then if that really exists, then everybody could experience this higher entity or love, absolute love for themselves. But how I was taught, in Christianity, you just believe that there is God, and you just believe that Jesus was his son coming to earth. But I didn't want to believe what others said. I wanted to experience it myself. And because I wasn't given any means to come to this experience myself in the Christian context, I started to read books about other religions, other philosophies. So when I was 15, 16, 17-year-old. And so my search was for something, some practice with which I could come to this experience myself. And when I finally read a book or found something about Buddhism and the practice of meditation and this path of inquiry into yourself and into, what is the world, then it seemed like I have found something that I was looking for. And yes?
Were there any, did you find any Buddhist centers or teachers in Switzerland?
No, at that time, that was in the late 1970s. I didn't know about any Buddhist center or Buddhist monastery in Switzerland. I was kind of I had to rely on books. And in one little book that had little stories and quotes from different religions, I found this story, kind of a Zen story, which directly spoke to my heart and which made me go off into a little cabin up in the Swiss mountains. It was about being mindful, being in the present. When you sit, you sit. When you chop wood, you chop wood. When you catch water, you catch water. And you are not already doing or thinking about doing the next thing. And I was very good in doing one thing and already being ahead of myself. And so I thought, yes, I will try. And so in this mountain cabin 1 week, I was just trying to be present with whatever I was doing. I had to collect wood. I had to make a wood fire to cook my meals. So I was mindful when eating, when washing the dishes. And, in retrospect, I realized that was my first retreat. And it was a self-retreat.
And you did that on your own without a teacher. You just
Yes,
sort of knew it was the right thing to do, or you wanted to experiment.
exactly. I wanted to experiment. And, then from instructions for meditation that I found in books, I just started to practice meditation for myself. It was basically be mindful and be mindful of the breath. Yeah, that was how it started.
And did you practice sitting on a cushion at all, the formal meditation?
Yes, I did practice, formally sitting on a cushion.
And Ariya, what was your path from there? How did your interest in the Dhamma develop?
So from there, I did a training at the conservatory in Zurich to become a music and dance education teacher. And, dance education, it was more like being aware of your body in movement. And so again, in retrospect, that was mindfulness of the body, movement, sensations. But after that, I was teaching for 3 years, and somehow it was like, now, I would need to teach for another 40 years until retirement. And I thought that cannot be the meaning of life, just to have a job or money and go for a holiday and have a nice time and then have to work again. I want to know more about myself and the world. So I gave up everything, took my backpack and became a backpacker, traveling around the world. And, I started off in Western countries, Ireland, the USA, New Zealand, Australia. And then I heard that in Thailand, one can go to this monastery where they have 10-day meditation retreats for foreigners. So I was looking forward very much. And that was Wat Suan Mok. At that time, Ajahn Buddhadasa, the famous Thai monk, was still alive. And so I did this 10-day retreat. It was led by 3 Western monks. And it was like coming home. It was, this is where I feel at home. This is it. And so, this was my first official meditation retreat. And that, gave a completely different direction to my life. I knew that I wanted to pursue this part also in my life.
And from there, I understand you eventually arrived in Burma or Myanmar and eventually became a nun. So tell us that part of the story.
You were frozen a little bit, but I think from there, how did I get to Burma?
Yeah.
So after these 2 years of backpacking around the world, I was broke. I had to get some money. I was working in Switzerland, not teaching music and dance. I did something else. After 2 years, I had money again. I was traveling again to Asia. And then I fell in love with an Australian man. That brought me to Dapto, near Wollongong. And again, my desire was to practice meditation. So I asked some of his friends, do you know a meditation center? Do you know if there is a retreat somewhere? And this person said, well, actually, in about 10 days, a Burmese meditation master will come and teach a retreat outside of Sydney. And I was, oh. And I contacted the organizers. I could go. And it was Sayadaw U Janaka. this Burmese meditation teacher. And up to then, I was not fixed on any particular Buddhist tradition. It was fine whether it was Thai. I had done also retreats in India, Nepal, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And then Burmese, okay. And that was the second coming home. The way he was teaching meditation, the Vipassana meditation based on Mahasi Sayadaw's method, that was what I was basically looking for. That was really this means to dive deeply into these processes in the body and mind. And, we had regular daily interviews with the Sayadaw, and so he realized what was happening in my practice. And after the retreat, he said, do you want to come to Burma and practice a bit longer? And I was in a meditative high. So I said, yes, Sayadaw, I'm coming. And that's how I ended up in Burma.
And what is it about the Burmese teachers? I mean, we hear a lot about Mahasi Sayadaw. What is it about them that, in your eyes, makes them so special?
It's such a basic, simple, but direct method to look into the processes in your body and what is happening in your mind. You do not need theoretical knowledge to do that, but you need an openness, a curiosity, being interested in what is happening. And what I also noticed that, stressing mindfulness in daily activities, like during a retreat, being mindful of the eating, taking a shower, opening doors, and, slowing down these activities. That really helped me to understand that, meditation is not something you do on the cushion with eyes closed, but it's much wider. It's being present with whatever is happening in your body and mind. And of course, in a retreat where you do that from the moment you wake up until you fall asleep, that's very powerful to be present all the time. And, with this, when mindfulness becomes better and better, when you can maintain it for longer and longer periods, that deepens the concentration, the mind becomes clearer, sharper. And then, a whole new world was opening up for me. And, I had thought I would go to Burma for 3 months. And I thought 3 months is a long period for meditation. Then I'm at least half enlightened, if not fully. But of course, after 3 months, I realized I'm not even half enlightened. But it was so interesting, to discover more and more that I told myself, I will still stay on a little bit, and a little bit, and a little bit. And so it ended up like 21 years.
And where were you when you went to Burma? Were you in the capital, or were you in the country? Or
when I first went, Sakyadhita Australia Center was in the capital at that time, Yangon, and it was on the main road going out to the airport. Well, in 1992, when I went to Burma, there was not much traffic, basically no private cars. But there was a bus stop outside of the center, and the buses were very noisy. They were wooden boxes on 4 wheels with a horn that worked. So the center in town was not quiet at all. And there was a tea shop next door who played music almost all day, all night long. So I was very frustrated. And, thinking, should I stay on or not? But somehow the practice just took off, with the daily interviews with Sayadaw. And, with the time I learned to meditate with noise, to have noise in the background. And so then it wasn't a problem anymore.
How long was it before you, I understand you learnt Burmese and you were able to translate the teachings and actually help other foreign students? So how much further along in your journey was that?
From 92 to 95, I was basically practicing meditation intensively, although I took little breaks in between. I would have 3 or 4 or 5 months in a stretch of intensive meditation, and then I would take a break for 1 month. Then I would go to the kitchen to help prepare for the meals, the desserts, the fruits, the cakes. And it was then when I started to learn Burmese, picking up words, picking up little phrases.
In the kitchen?
And after the 3 years, in 95, the forest center was opened about 30 kilometers north of Yangon. And Sayadaw Janaka wanted me and my Burmese friend Mimi to go there, because by that time I could kind of talk small talk in Burmese. But the teacher he sent to the forest center couldn't speak English at all. And so he wanted me to become the teacher for Sayadaw Indaka. And so then I was thrown into the water without being able to swim. So I had to translate Dhamma talks and interviews with Mimi. She helped me a little bit. Her English wasn't very good, but in the free time, I really started to learn Burmese vocabulary, listen to Burmese Dhamma talks, went to the Burmese interviews, just to pick up, how do you say rising and falling of the abdomen, or, walking meditation and so on. And so very quickly, I made lots of progress in my Burmese. And, then, I was translating a lot for Sayadaw Indaka, and gradually, starting to teach myself, the foreign meditators who came to Burma.
Ariya, my understanding is that the meditation centers in Burma are fairly basic, so living there, I think, is quite tough. Is that the case?
When I arrived in 92, yes, it was fairly basic, although I, as a foreigner, had the privilege of not staying in a dormitory like the Burmese meditators. I had to share a room with another foreigner, and we didn't have a bamboo mat on the floor. We even had a bed, but the mattress was like 2 centimeters foam, which was not very good. And, there was no aircon, so it was hot, humid. Sometimes when there was electricity, there was a fan, but not all the time. Yes, it was fairly basic. But then with the opening of the forest center, which was designed especially for foreign meditators, there it was more, let's say, luxurious. Like there were little kutis, little houses. So people had usually a single room with attached bathroom. The mattresses were still very poor, maybe now 5 centimeters of foam. And, no aircon. Yes, but what was so strong was to be in this country where the Dhamma where the Dhamma is so strong, where it's something that is lived. People practice the Dhamma, or those who cannot go into a meditation center and practice meditation, they understand the value of this practice, and they think that's the best thing you can do in your life. And so to practice in a country or in a place where you feel, you're so much supported physically, materially, but also mentally or spiritually, makes such a difference. And so for me to put up with very basic facilities was okay.
And were there many foreign meditators coming to the center in those years?
Yes, when the Forest Center was opened in 1995, and Sayadaw U Janaka every year traveling abroad and inviting people to come to Burma and practice in his center, we had sometimes 40 or 50 foreign meditators in the Forest Center. So I was very busy. Mimi, my Burmese friend too. We were the managers, we were the caretakers, we were the translators, we were preparing their rooms, we would take them to the doctors when they got diarrhea, and so on. So we did everything. But it was a very happy, very fulfilling time.
And how many years in total did you stay in Burma?
In total, it was 21 years.
Wow, wow. And we've all heard how difficult the situation there is politically. Can you tell us anything about that, how it affected the meditation centers? If you can't, that's okay.
Yes. I'm here in Burma, in Myanmar, and I have to be a bit careful about what I say because I might not get a visa next time when I say critical things. So the situation here in the country is difficult. In the center where I am, outside of Mandalay, up in the Shan Hills, this is in the countryside. Here it's peaceful and quiet, unlike in other parts of the countries right now. And, Sayadaw U Indaka, who has, established the main center in Yangon and this branch center here, with our Metta in Action projects, every year we also went to his village and supported various projects there. I don't want to pronounce the name of this village, but when the coup happened 3 years ago, there was fighting there and many people had to flee, to leave the village because many houses fell into ashes. And so these people, here in this country, there are no social institutions to take care of such people. So it's basically the monasteries, meditation centers that take care. And that village is not the only one. There are many, many hundred more villages which experience the same thing. But, then people would go to a monastery or meditation center from a monk from their village. That's why here at this center right now, there are about 80 people taking shelter here, waiting until they can go back to their village, which they are longing to. Here at least they have safety, they have a place to stay, they get food. But of course, it's not the life that they would like to live.
Ariya, I'd like to talk a bit more about Metta in Action in a moment, but we skipped over part of your story, which was that you became a nun and somewhere along the way you disrobed. So can you tell us about that, the decision to become a nun and then stepping back?
I was a music and dance education teacher, so singing, dancing, playing the piano was my life. And even though when I started to practice meditation, I never considered to become a nun because I knew as a nun you have to follow certain rules. One of them, not singing, not dancing, no entertainment. And so, that was out of question for me. But after having met Sayadaw U Janaka in Australia and learning that one can ordain as a temporary nun, that was, is this possible? And so when I decided I would go to Burma for 3 months, I thought, why not take up temporary ordination, just to fully dive into the practice and live my lay life kind of out of the gate. And so with that in mind, I took up this ordination, knowing or thinking after 3 months I go back to Switzerland and then I sing and dance again. But as I said, the practice was so interesting. And so I said, I stay a bit longer and a bit longer and a bit longer until I realized, it's 3 years now in Burma. I have not sung, I have not danced, I have not played the piano, and I don't miss it. What was a base for my happiness and contentment was no longer necessary. Actually, I found that, with calming the mind and purifying it from the defilement, I was much happier and more content than I ever was. And so then it was like, okay, I don't need to go back to Switzerland. I don't need to disrobe. I want to stay a nun. I want to continue this life. And so that's how I stayed on in Burma.
I think Helen may have froze.
But you are now living in Switzerland or Burma? I'm sorry, I'm a bit confused.
Yes. Now my base, I live in Switzerland, and I had disrobed after 21 years of being a nun because a couple of years before I finally disrobed, I was diagnosed with a metastasis. I had a melanoma before, and so this had metastasized, and this led to the amputation of my lower leg. So at that time I was in Switzerland, get my leg amputated and learning to walk again with a prosthesis. So I was staying with my parents because I had no place to stay in Switzerland, being a nun. And so staying with my parents, I realized, they were getting older, and the forgetfulness of my father, I realized, well, this is more than just being forgetful. So I told him, go and check it out. And it turned out to be Alzheimer. So that was a big blow for my mother. But it was very good that I was with them at that time. But then shortly after that, my mother was diagnosed with a lymphoma. And she died within 7 months. But luckily I was there, so I could take care of her, in the final months of her life. And I could tell her that I would take care of my dad, that she didn't need to worry, that I would take care. And so, already with the amputation of my leg and, having this diagnosis and, the prospects of living much longer were not very high. So that made me think, how do I want to spend the few years that I may have? How do I want to spend them? What is important? What are my priorities? And also what is most beneficial for my practice? And then with my parents, all this coming together, I came to the conclusion that disrobing would be best for my practice and, for taking care of my dad, so that he could walk around in Switzerland with kind of a normal looking person and not with this funny closed person with a bald head.
Right.
So then I put down the rope, but luckily, I could continue the life I was living before. I didn't need to go and, get a job to earn money because, I could continue to teach meditation retreats. When I would go away and teach a retreat, we had a caretaker for my dad. So, and then I would go back and, take care of my father. And so that was 5 years until my father died. That's now 4 years ago. So since then, I'm just fully dedicating my life again to practice the Dhamma, to share the Dhamma, teach the Dhamma, to do translation work, to do this metta in action work.
Ariya, I'm so sorry. I didn't know about your amputation, and my condolences with your parents. But in a way, it did work out that you were with them. So now you're teaching, and you teach around the world. Tell us a bit about your teaching. I understand you teach both metta and vipassana meditation. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The vipassana meditation, this is what I really connected to with Sayadaw U Janaka and then going to Burma. And Sayadaw U Janaka, the longer I was with him, the more he was also stressing the cultivation of metta. So, I was accompanying him twice when he was teaching in Switzerland, assisting him in his retreat. And of a 10-day retreat, he would have the meditators cultivate metta for 3 days and then only switch to vipassana. And also then my second teacher, Sayadaw U Indaka, he was stressing a lot the cultivation of loving kindness, practicing metta. And so with that, I did a longer metta retreat and translating Sayadaw U Indaka's book on the practice of metta meditation. And foreigners who came to Burma, then from my own practice, but also from guiding others in their practice, how important and supportive the metta practice is, not only for vipassana practice, but also in day-to-day life. How valuable this practice is when we can manifest the kindness, the care in the world out there. Now we are muted, Helen. You're still muted.
Silly me. And I must apologize. I've got a few internet problems tonight, and I think Ariya in Myanmar, in Burma, you're doing pretty well, but there's a few little hiccups there as well. We're almost ready to wrap up, but if anyone has questions, please raise your hand or put them on the chat room, and we can have a conversation. But your retreat, and actually what we've titled this webinar, is Making Friends with the Dharma. And I wondered if you could just tell us a bit about that, why that's important.
Yes, because, basically, we have to rely on ourselves, lastly. you know, we have friends, we have teachers, but finally, you know, we have to rely on ourselves. And so if we make the Dhamma to our friend, then we have a very good friend with us wherever we go, whether we are with other people, whether we are alone, but having the Dhamma or the practice of the Dhamma, that is a reliable friend. And you know, a good friend stands to you or supports you in difficulties. And so having the Dhamma as a good friend, it's always there when you need it, or you can always access it because it's there. And, you know, as it's also said on the flyer for this webinar, you know, there are many aspects of the Dhamma which can be, you know, your good friend. But basically, it's these two aspects of understanding, wisdom, which we get through the practice of Vipassana meditation, insight meditation. And on the other hand, it's the qualities of kindness and compassion. And these two aspects, Vipassana and Metta, Karuna, insight, understanding, and kindness, compassion, you know, they really go hand in hand. They support each other. And, you know, when we can rely on these friends, on our understanding, on our wisdom, when we can rely on our kindness, our compassion, this is so helpful in our formal formal meditation practice and also in our day-to-day life.
Apologies. And as I said, you're also very involved in Metta in Action, which is supporting both the nuns and I believe the villages. So what are some of your current projects with that?
Yes. So over the years, supporting the nuns has become a priority because in this country, the monks get much more support from the people here. But the nuns, they do so much good work, you know. So we really want to support them. And having been a nun myself and being in the position where, you know, not getting as much support as the monks, so I can really feel with them. And, you know, some of the nuns, they have established monastic schools, which means they take little nuns, little novices, but also lay kids from the neighborhood and provide everything. Because in the government school, they need to buy the uniforms, they need to buy the books, they need to pay a little money for electricity here and there. And many poor families, they cannot afford to send all their children to school, maybe one, if at all. And so in these monastic schools, the children get everything for free. And so this is such, you know, an important thing, you know, for children to get an education, because when they are educated, they can, you know, make something out of their life. And so right now, you know, supporting the nuns, the nunneries, and these monastic schools organized by the nuns is one of the priorities. And now under the very specific condition in this country, so we support the internally displaced people, like the local refugees which had to flee from their villages. So just supporting them with, you know, basic food stuff, rice and oil and whatever, you know, is needed to get through the days.
And I understand you also organize practical things like helping with building bathrooms and repairing buildings and keeping
yes, I mean, with the nunneries, in the nunneries, we always ask the head nun, what do you need? And, then they would say, oh, I need proper latrines, proper toilets. Or they say, well, for 23 nuns, I have only one book where they can learn. So it would be good that each nun has a book. Or they say, the roof is leaking. It would be good before the rainy season to fix the roof. Or to build another building to accommodate more nuns. Because many of these nuns, they also take orphans or half orphans, offer them a place, where they can live, where they can get an education.
And we had a fundraiser a few months back for Metta in Action, and people were extremely generous. So we were delighted with that. And we've put on the chat room, we've put our donation link up again. And if you would like to give some money to help Ariya with her work in Metta in Action, we will forward it on. So it's the same link as for membership. So if we just put Metta, so that we know that the money is to go to Metta in Action. I'm just wondering if anyone has any questions. And I'm very happy to see that our Vice President and Spiritual Advisor, Venerable Toki, has joined us. Venerable Toki, would you like to join in the conversation?
Sure. I'm so sorry I was here late. My teaching program's changed, and anyway, it happened.
That's all right.
Yeah.
We missed your blessing.
That's okay. That's okay. I think we've got lots of blessings here. I mean, I found it very interesting, Ariya, that you were talking about before ordaining, having this background in singing, dancing, playing the piano, theatre, and I was like, that's so my background.
Really?
Yeah, totally.
Oh.
Yeah, me too. But I was maybe like you. I was ready. I was totally ready. And I find it interesting that decision must have been, I mean, as a monastic, I sort of think, oh, it must have been a very difficult decision, or maybe not. I mean, you sounded quite comfortable with deciding to disrobe to care for your father, and also being so very considerate of how it would be for him, his experience, if you're, as you said, walking around in monastic robes and so forth. So I just wondered how those transitions have been for you.
Ariya?
Yes, it was kind of a difficult decision. I gave myself the time just to really let it sink in, and hopefully, one day it just would become clear if I disrobe or not. And so in this whole process, then yes, I came to this point where it was like, yes, that's the right thing to do. It was not so much a decision from the head, but it was much more a decision that came from, let's say, the heart, from within. And when it was clear, then it was not difficult anymore, because then it was just feeling that's the right thing to do.
Do you think you might take robes again, Ariya?
In the moment, I'm not considering it actively, but who knows?
I'd like to invite Sky, who's been, I think, involved with Ariya's retreat. Perhaps you can tell us about the experience, Sky, if you don't mind.
Well, each year, the last few years, I've been doing the 2-week January Metta retreat. And it's just lovely to participate, seeing Ariya in Burma and at the retreat center there, but knowing that we can't go there. But still feeling that very strong connection. And I find that it's a lovely retreat because since COVID, of course, we've been doing it at home. And so the blend of committing to so many hours of sitting and walking and being online for discussion and Dhamma talks, and also doing things in our world, is a lovely blend, actually. Usually I did such long retreats, intensive retreats, particularly in Burmese tradition. They're quite intensive. And to sort of do this much more as a daily living process, I found, especially with the metta, is beautiful. It's very beautiful. Mm.
And you found the metta very beneficial, Sky?
Oh, I've always used metta. It's always been the softening of the heart, that I don't think you have so much with the Vipassana, and also the deep connection with other beings and all beings. So the opening of the heart is quite profound, as well as the deepening of the concentration and the stillness. Mm.
And Ariya, you will be giving these, for those of us who can't get to Perth, you'll be giving these online retreats in the future?
You know, here people would love to come here to Burma again, be physically here for this metta retreat. But, you know, we don't know how the situation will develop here in this country. And as long as people cannot come here, we will continue to give these online retreats.
I was just thinking perhaps Bridget would like to say something, because I know you're writing a book on aging, and I just thought what Ariya was saying about the experience with her parents might be relevant. Bridget?
Well, no, not in particular. One thing is I'd just like to tell Ariya, sadly, I can't do her retreat when she comes here because I have the book deadline, but I will be with her in spirit. And yeah, it's a challenging book because those of us who are no longer 30, like aging and death, we've heard about this. The Buddha mentioned it, and now it's getting really real. And so it's our everyday life, but it's also our practice. And I think now more than ever for most of us, self-compassion and metta are just so important as we face our own bodily frailty and losing friends. And like I live in a place for older people, and so it can just strike people out of the blue. One minute they're like vibrant and the next minute they're hospitalized. So yeah, it's just something, it takes us, I think, deeper into our practice to go as we get nearer to the end of our lives and as we're facing old age, sickness and death and friends, and it's just can't go past metta. That's what I think, especially on a hard day. Yeah, and teaching like Ariya's is wonderful. Just one little quick question. With metta in action, which I will donate some more to when I get off this, I just wanted to ask Ariya, is it easy for you to get the money through to the people? Because I listened to that there's a talk on Dharma Seed recently by Carol Wilson and Greg Shiv talking about the situation in Myanmar, and it made it sound a little bit like you were that it was harder for the money to come in and go out. But are you able to, you know, utilize the money we send, or is that a bit tricky at the moment?
Ariya?
Yes, you know, sending the money to this country has always been difficult, and usually I carry it on me, even if it's large sums. Also this year, you know, I was packed with, I don't want to say how much, but a lot, and no problem.
Good on you.
I just trust, you know, and I have all the devas with me at the immigration and the airport.
That's wonderful. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? If you do, just raise your hand or unmute. Let us see you. Okay, so Ariya, we've got about 5-6 minutes left. I wonder if if we could ask you to lead us in a very quick metta meditation, just for those 5 minutes. Would that be possible?
Yes, sure. I'm
Okay.
happy to do that.
Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. So then just sit in a comfortable way. Relax the body. Relax the mind. And we can start cultivating loving kindness, thoughts of friendliness and benevolence towards ourselves, with a wish such as, may I be well, happy and peaceful. Or it could be, may I be safe and protected. Or may I live at ease and in peace. So it can be one of these phrases or your own metta wish. It's best to have a very straightforward, simple metta wish for yourself, which you keep repeating gently and silently in your heart, in your mind. And please remember, when cultivating metta, it's about cultivating this friendly, benevolent, caring attitude in ourselves. It's not about doing it to get certain results. We do not do it with expectations that this wish may become true, but it's about this friendly attitude towards ourselves. Simply, may I be safe and protected. And we understand that not only we ourselves want to be happy and well, or to be free from suffering, but that also other people want to be happy and well, or free from suffering, or that each living being wants to be happy and well. They want to be free from suffering. And so based on this understanding, we extend this benevolent attitude towards all living beings. We can make the transition in this way. Just as I wish to be well, happy and peaceful, may all living beings be well, happy and peaceful. Or just I wish to be just as I wish to be safe and protected, may all living beings be safe and protected. You do it with your own wish, and then simply continue to cultivate this benevolent, friendly attitude towards all living beings. May all living beings be at ease and in peace. And so on, gently and silently cultivate this metta attitude in yourself. And I will conclude this very short metta meditation, the Burmese metta chant. Metta nishim pyuholi asiao me pue tu con cheso mame bu atuao me de amia chikin yo te chin kimi le sa de se wan magwe da twe da ni le ni nyete ni nhớ đồ sao sao đại ao lu bao niên chân nì.
Thank you, Ariya. That was beautiful. And sorry. Thank you, Ariya. That was a lovely way to finish. And thank you. And thank you for all your wisdom. And we hope you have a very safe trip to Western Australia, and that you continue your work with your retreats and Metta in Action. It's very inspiring. And as we said earlier, if you would like to donate, we will pass on all donations. And the link is up now in the chat room. And just a reminder that this webinar will be available on the Sakyadhita Australia YouTube channel in a few days. So you can tell your friends, anyone who may have missed it, that we will put it up soon. Just to let you know what's happening next, our next webinar will be just after Easter on Wednesday the 3rd of April with Leanne Tang, who's a lay meditation teacher. And Leanne has recently written a book called Get Off the Cushion. So it's going to be a very interesting, I suspect, approach to meditation. So we'll send out a flyer about that fairly soon. But if you want to put it in your diary, it'll be 7 p.m. standard time on Wednesday, the 3rd of April. And after that, we'll have our annual general meeting for all our members in May. At this stage, it's on the 5th of May. And we haven't yet confirmed the speaker for that, but we hope to find someone inspiring. And both events will be on Zoom. We're hoping to have an AGM in person soon, but perhaps next year. And we really appreciate all of those who have joined Sakyadhita Australia, who are members. So thank you. And if you'd like to become a member, think about joining. Again, we've put the link on the chat room. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And wherever you are, enjoy your evening. Thank you for coming. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu,
you.
sadhu.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Sky.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, Aria's gone.